Hello, I am Dr. Ruby Bell. I am your instructor for EDU 486. So today, I would like to share with you information regarding the PPAT. Our PPAT is the Praxis Professional Assessment for teachers. That assessment is required by the state. The PPAT is required by the state for all student teaching interns. So today I would like to go over PPAT Task 1, which of course is embedded in your EDU 487, and the other tasks are embedded in other courses. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through the process of completing the PPAT for EDU 487. So if you will bear with me and work with me and listen carefully, and please take note. In order to get to the website, you will enter www.ets.org, and I hope that you can see my screen. I'm going to make sure that it's shared with you because I'm going to share it again to make sure that it's there. www.ets.org. Once you get to this page, you will click on Praxis. Once you get to this page, you will click on ETS Performance Assessments. And once you get to this page where it says ETS Performance Assessments, you will click on Task Requirements, Learn More. This will take you to the PPAT Assessment Task Requirements. Task 1 is knowledge of students and the learning environment, which is the task that we are concerned with today. And also there's task 2, assessment and data collection to measure and inform student learning. There is task 3, design and instruction for student learning. And task 4, implementing and analyzing instruction to promote student learning. Task 2, task 3, and task 4 are scored by ETS. Task 1 is scored by your supervising professor at the time of your internship. Remember, your PPAT assessment, the Praxis Professional Assessment for Teachers, will be completed during your student teaching internship. And the cost of this assessment is $300. So you'll read all about that as you study the ETS website as it relates to PPAT. So let's just dive into what we have to do today. You're going to click on Task Requirements so that you can see what the required tasks are for you. And let's see if I can find those. I had downloaded them for you. Okay, Task Requirements. Give it a minute. Okay, so what do you have to do for this task? Task 1, of course, task 1 is knowledge of students and the learning environment. You will have, of course, to answer some what we call guiding prompts. You will also have to submit 4 different artifacts. The first artifact, the document that you must submit, will be the contextual factors chart. You will have to submit an instructional and support resources chart, a getting to know your student document and activity, and a document that demonstrates how you communicate with your students' families, okay? And we will look at each one of those as we get to those. Okay, so you have to compose a written commentary, and it says step 1, you're going to talk about the factors, the resources, and protocols. And then, of course, step 2 is knowledge of students. Factors, resources, and protocols. There are a multitude of factors and resources that can influence, support, and enhance student learning. Some of these factors and resources exist or are available in the classroom, such as instructional resources, student funds of knowledge, whereas others must be generated alongside the students, such as the protocols, the norms, and the agreements. It says, in addition, there are other factors that extend beyond the classroom walls into the broader school district and community that influence learning and meaningful partnerships. It says the following set of activities ask you to identify and reflect on a variety of factors and resources that can be used to communicate and cultivate partnerships with students and the community. Activity 1 is completing the contextual factors chart. And text box 1.1, understanding the contextual factors influencing instruction and student learning. You are to identify your chosen community factor. Based on your chosen community factor, you are to identify and describe one possible instructional strategy and one learning activity that you could use in your classroom to further student learning. Then you are to provide a rationale that explains how the identified strategy and activity connect to the chosen factor. Guiding prompt B says, identify your chosen school or district factor. Based on your chosen school and district factor, identify and describe a possible instructional strategy and one learning activity that you could use in your classroom to further student learning, and provide a rationale that explains how the identified strategy and activity connect to the chosen factor. So here you have to select your community factor and your school and district factor, and then of course identify an instructional strategy and a learning activity. So you have to remember, and you need to look up, and I will provide a definition for an instructional strategy and a definition for learning activity. What we're going to do, I've already uploaded the information. I've uploaded sample examples of the guiding prompts. You will read those prompts that have already been provided and respond to the questions. That way, you will have an understanding as to what ETS would be looking for during the time that you submit your activity or your guiding prompts. Okay, so what I wanted to do, I wanted to go through, and then I'm going to come back and share with you your charts and the information for each one. Let's see. And of course, you have the activity 3, responding to the identified resources. Okay. Activity 1. Activity 2, responding to the identified resources. Many resources that are already available to teachers can be leveraged to support learning and promote positive relationships using the identified resources from the instructional and support resources chart. And it says respond to the guiding prompts below. Text box 112, available resources to enhance student learning. Select 2 resources from the completed instructional and support resources chart and explain how you will use each in your classroom to support student learning. Select a particular characteristic that you listed under knowledge of individual students in the contextual factors chart. Based on the selected characteristics, explain how a resource from the instructional and support resources chart different from the 2 discussed in the previous prompt could enhance student learning. Okay, and this, of course, once you start the PPAT in real life, is where you would type your response. So we looked at activity 2 in text box 112. So let's look at activity 3, understanding classroom norms, protocols, and agreements. Every classroom operates according to sets of norms, protocols, and agreements. Some of these norms, protocols, and agreements, and if you don't know or understand what norms or protocols are, you might want to look those up. The norms are the things that happen in the class on a regular basis, the things that we know should happen. And the protocol are the systems that have been put in place in order to make sure the class runs extremely well. Okay. So some of these norms, protocols, and agreements, and the agreements are, of course, what you and maybe your students agree that you're going to do. Sometimes we allow students to help us to decide on the classroom. So we all agree that that's what that would be. So we pick out the norms, the protocols, or agreements are established by the teacher or the school, whereas others are created by students and teachers working together. Access and review the norms, the protocols, and agreements for the classroom to which you are assigned, and then respond to the following prompts. Text box 113, norms, protocols, and agreements. Guiding prompts. Describe one example of the classroom norm, protocol, or agreement, just one, and explain how the norm, the protocol, or agreement facilitates instruction, enhances student learning, and or impacts the learning environment. B, describe one example of a technology norm, a technology protocol, or a technology agreement for your classroom, and explain how the norm, the protocol, or the agreement facilitates instruction, moves instruction forward, enhances student learning, and or impacts the learning environment. C, identify and describe one norm, protocol, or agreement that you and your students could create together. Explain how the norm, the protocol, or the agreement will facilitate instruction, enhance student learning, and or impact the learning environment. Okay, so that's activity 3. So now we're at step 2, which is a knowledge of students. It is essential that teachers embark on a continuous journey of deeply knowing and understanding their students. There are multiple ways to get to know your students and appreciate their lived experiences. I am so sorry. Cultural and linguistic assets, academic strengths, and unique learning needs. This set of activities asks you to describe how you are cultivating relationships with your students. For example, through working with students to create rigorous, relevant learning opportunities, and acquiring increasing in-depth knowledge about each student's academic and non-academic strengths, skills, competencies, and interests. Activity 1, getting to know your students. Create or choose a meaningful whole class activity that honors and values your students as unique individuals. For example, a student interest activity or projects. It could journal or it could be a short biography. Be your choice. You may also go online in your browser and indicate getting to know you activity for students, and that will show you a variety of activities that you could utilize for this particular prompt. Give each student in your class the opportunity to participate in the activity so that you can gather information relevant to your students' interests and then respond to the guiding prompts below. Text box 121, getting to know your students. The guiding prompt A, based on the compilation, the pulling together of information from the results of the getting to know your students activity, analyze one example of how this information would influence a whole class instructional decision you would make. Provide a rationale for your decision. B will ask, using one student's completed getting to know you student activity, analyze how this information would influence an instructional decision you would make for this student and provide a rationale for your decision. If you are taking the real the PPAT by ETS, this is where you would write your response. Okay. Activity 2, understanding your students. A core feature of exemplary teaching is getting to know and understand your students as unique individuals. This means not only valuing and appreciating their backgrounds and personal histories, but also recognizing the various ways in which they demonstrate competence. Have they mastered an area of learning? Identify 2 focused students who reflect different backgrounds and personal theories. Then respond to the following prompts. In other words, you will have to select 2 students from different backgrounds and who have different personal histories. Guiding prompt A, it says, describe each identified focused student's cultural and linguistic assets, their lived experiences and academic strengths and learning needs. Explain how each of these two students contributes to the learning environment of your classroom. Based on your knowledge of the focus student number 1, identify and describe one possible instructional strategy and one learning activity that you and this student could create together to use in your classroom to support this student. Then explain how the identified strategy and activity reflect your understanding and appreciation of this student's cultural and linguistic assets, their lived experiences, academic strengths, and learning needs. C, based on your knowledge of focus student number 2, identify and describe one possible instructional strategy and one learning activity that you and this student number 2 could create together to use in your classroom to support this student. Explain how the identified strategy and activity reflect your understanding and appreciation of the student's cultural and linguistic assets, lived, academic strengths, and learning needs. Okay, so that's text box 1, 2, 2. Text box 1, 2, 3 is under activity 3, which is communicating with your students' families. Equally as important as developing relationships with your students is cultivating partnerships with your students' families. There are multiple ways to foster these partnerships. Example, face-to-face, parent-teacher-student discussion circles, parent-teacher conferences, interactive family nights, and so on and so forth. Based on your knowledge of your students, create one communication method that you would use to learn about and connect with your students' families or your students' caregivers. Text box 1, 2, 3, communicating with your students' families. After creating and using the communication, respond to the guiding prompts below. Guiding prompt A. Explain how your method of communication conveys the importance of cultivating positive relationships with students and their families. Use examples from your communication to support your explanation. Guiding prompt B. Explain how your method of communication fostered interaction among you, your students, and your students' families. Use examples to support your explanation. Remember to use examples. And C, guiding prompt C says, describe the overall response you received from your communication. How will this response impact an instructional decision you will make in your classroom? Use examples from the responses you receive to support your analysis. And of course, if you were taking the PPAT, you would indicate your responses here. Okay, so that concludes a brief review of task 1. Remember, there are 4 artifacts: the contextual factors chart, the instructional support resources chart, the getting to know your student activity, and a communication to your students and their families. And these, of course, would have to be uploaded, but it'll be a little bit different for you as you complete your EDU 487. So let's look at the first chart. Let's look at the contextual factors chart. Let me see if I can share that with you. This is what your contextual factors chart looks like. There is one dropped, a sample dropped in your course for EDU 487. And of course, you have to complete this and submit it as an assignment. This chart is designed to help you understand the many factors that affect teaching and learning. Such factors include your students' lived experiences and unique learning needs, the community, classroom norms and agreements, and the physical environment in which teaching and learning take place. Understanding these factors as they relate to your teaching will help you determine the instructional strategies and approaches that will support your students' learning. In this chart, Address the factors listed as they pertain to your teaching assignment. The subcategories listed with each factor are just suggestions. They may be other subcategories that you would like to address, or there may be a subcategory listed that does not apply to your situation. So what I asked you to do in order to be thorough, I would include the information in the subcategory. So here, knowledge of individual students, it asks you to share from your teaching assignment. What are some of the lived experiences or personal histories of your students? What are some of the cultural and linguistic assets of your students? What are their home languages? What are their academic and non-academic strengths? What are the unique learning needs in that classroom? Are there any prior learning experiences? And what are the areas of interest for your students? Also, factor general classroom information. These subcategories would be helpful. I would include them in the information that I was to provide for this chart. What's the grade and developmental levels, the age range, the content of the content area being taught in that classroom, and any other factors that you feel are pertinent for this particular chart. Okay. Then we have the school and the district factors. The school, you can list the school culture, school norms and policies, family engagement, community engagement, student-centered learning goals and strategies. And this is the information that you can provide as it relates to the district. How many students are enrolled in the entire district? What is the demographic shifts, minority, majority, percent of students receiving free and reduced lunch, graduation rates, attendance rates, are there any IEPs and ELL students? And in the community, are there any historical buildings or any museums located in that community? What is the population? Is the area urban, rural, suburban? What's the socioeconomic status? What's the census data for your community? So that in, I just see a misspelled word for this, I'm sorry. So, and this is a student's work. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. But anyway, this is the chart that you would use, complete, based on your school, based on the classroom that you have chosen. I know and I realize that we may not be in school at this time. So if you're already teaching or you're already part of a school system, you've been in the classroom, if not, contact a teacher who does have a classroom and they will be able to help you to answer these questions. The next chart that we need to look at is the instructional resources. Make sure I have the right one. The instructional and support resources chart. It says task 1, a wide range of services and resources are available within a school system to support instruction. This chart allows you to become familiar with what is available to you within your teaching context, the things that you can put your hands on, the things that you can use in your classroom to help you teach. It says complete the chart by listing available instructional materials and resources. It says you must link this document as an artifact in your responses when you are taking the PPAT. But right now, this statement does not apply to you. The type of resource community. It says list one example and its sources. For example, here, whatever it is that's in the community that you can take to your classroom. I will list more than one. Just look at your community and see what things are in your community that would be useful that you could take back into your classroom and use. Any resource. Building the district policies and the programs. What policies and what programs have been implemented in your school system, in your school district that will help your students to learn. Support staff. These are the people who support you as a teacher. What supports are provided by your school or by your school system that are important, that will help your students to learn better. Please make sure that when you list anything for your community, the building district, your support staff, that you list more than one, okay? Because I will be looking for multiple. Though the chart probably asks for you to only do one, please share multiple and then give an explanation as to how it might be advantageous for you to use in your classroom. Instructional materials, those are the things that you use in the classroom in order to help your students learn. And you can see an example here. Curricular programs, you may have a math program, you may have a reading program, that you use a science program, that you use in your classroom, that they use in the school. If so, list those and give a brief explanation as to what that program is used for. Instructional technology, we all know what that is. What types of technology are available for you in that school that you can use in your classroom to enhance learning? This particular one has a Waterford learning, early learning program. So there may be some math programs, there may be some reading programs that you can download through the instructional technology. So anyway, instructional technology is the technology that you use in your classroom to help enhance learning. Access to recorded student data. Where is your recorded? Do you have access to recorded student data? I am sure. So everywhere, wherever that is stored at your school, please indicate here. And then if there's something else that you'd like to list, will be fine. Okay. The next item that we will look at will be screen share. Will be a getting to know you activity. This particular student decided to just use a student interest inventory, and very simple 8 questions. What is your favorite animal? What is your favorite school subject? What is your favorite thing to do? What is your favorite color? What is your favorite food? Do you like to read? What is something you want me to know about you that I have not asked about? And draw a picture of yourself below doing something you enjoy doing. That's just an example. And then, of course, the individual answer the question based on the compilation of information. You can read that. That'll be good for you. And using one of your students completed getting to know you student activity analyze. And that's what the student did here. So, but this is what you're interested in. And as I said before, you can use an interest inventory, or you can browse the internet, and you can indicate in your browser, show me getting to know you activities, or student getting to know you activities, and whatever you pull up, whatever you want to use, you can do that. I do realize that you may not be in school, so if you have some students in your church, in your community, or you know a couple of parents that you would can share this information with, and they will allow their students to complete it for you, you may do just that. The final document that we will look at today is the communication piece. This, of course, is a letter that has been written by a student. And please take note, there are 3 things that I need you to do in writing this communication letter. First of all, I need you to introduce yourself. Then I need to talk about the demographics in your classroom, the diversity, and how you're going to address the diverse needs of the students in your classroom. And I also would need you to indicate to the parents in your letter or whatever form of communication that you decide to utilize, how that parent can communicate with you, and how the 2 of you are going to work together to make sure that the student has an excellent year. So there are 3 things. Introduce yourself. Talk about the demographics or the diversity in your class, and how you are going to address the diverse needs within your classroom with all the students that you have, and how your parents can communicate with you at any time, and how the 2 of you can work together to make sure that your student, that the child is successful in the classroom. Please make sure those items are included in your whatever piece of communication that you utilize. So I hope this has helped. Do remember that you have, let's see if I can find my course shell. Okay. Give me a minute, please. Thank you for your patience. So this course is your course shell, and these are due week 4. Here you will have the activity for text box 111, understanding cultural factors, 112, available resources, 113, norms, protocols, 121, getting to know your student, 122, the focus student, and of course 123, communicating with your students. But I'll come back to that. These are the sample items that I just shared with you. They are here for you to look at and browse at your convenience. And what you will do is to read the sample text box activities that I have provided and answer the questions. I'm going to show you one because they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are all due week 4. So let me see if I can pull this one up. Okay, so this is task 1. And this is a library of the example, and all of these are elementary education because it's just easier for me to pull. And I figured that was in the middle, pre-K and high school. So we chose elementary as K6. So task 1, step 1, text box 111, understanding the contextual factors influencing instruction and student learning. You only have to read the one example 1 that says meet or exceed standards levels. And these are the guiding prompts that we just went over. Read those. And then I need you to read the activity that has been provided. Okay. It says B, A, B, and C. And once you read that, the only thing that you have to do to submit to me will be to respond to these statements here. Refer to task 1 rubric for text box 111 and ask yourself, does the candidate connect one chosen community factor to an instructional strategy? Read and answer the question. I'm sorry. Let's see here. Does the candidate connect one chosen community factor to an instructional strategy and a learning strategy in order to further student learning? That would be in the article above this. It's hard for me. You will look here to find that answer. All right, and bullet number, second bullet, does the candidate connect one chosen school district factor to an instructional strategy and learning strategy in order to further student learning? You will go back and find it here. Where does the candidate explain how each instructional strategy furthers student learning? You will go back and you will find it here and write the answer. And where does the candidate explain how each learning activity furthers student learning? You would go back and read it here, find the answer, and respond. And this is all you have to turn in to me. This is all that will be submitted. Do not read example 2. Each one of these have 2 examples, example 1, example 2. Example 2 is did not meet or partially met standards level. If you want to read it for your own good, it is okay with me, and see if you can answer the questions. It is fine. That will give you an additional support and understanding, but you do not have to do that. So again, you have each one of these to complete for each one of the areas that I have listed. And remember, the only one that you have to read is the first example, met or exceed standards, and answer the bullets that are provided under the met and exceed standards. And that is what will be submitted to me. These are all due, as I stated, week 4. Let me share my screen. These are all due week 4. You will answer, respond to the bullets for the library example, task 111, 1.1.1, and then you will upload your contextual factors chart. You will respond to text box 1.1.2, and then you will upload an instructional resources chart. Now, remember, this and this do not match. This is on your own. This is what you do. This is what's based on the classroom that you elect. This is based on the classroom that you elect. And you do not have to, it will not be based on this, okay? You're on your own with this one. This is just an assignment, okay? The 1.11, 1.12, 1.13, 1.21, 1.23 are assignments, okay? So don't worry about, just answer those. And then these you will create. You will create your own artifacts. They are not based on the 1.11, 1.12. Again, you will create your own artifacts and your own getting to know your student activity and create your own communication letter, and of course your own artifact for your contextual factors chart and your instructional and support resources chart. I do ask that you would go back, go to www.ets.org, click on Praxis, click on ETS Performance Assessments, click on Task Requirements, Learn More, and you will see Task 1. Please, when you find Task 1, read it for yourself so that you will have a better understanding, okay? I hope that this has helped you. I hope I have provided enough information for you. And I look forward to serving you. Again, this is an online course. If you have questions, you can reach me via email at rbell@umo.edu. Please make sure that you look through your Moodle shell. I have worked extremely hard to make sure the dates are correct, the due dates are correct. But if for some reason I've missed one, would someone please send me an email and I will be more than happy to correct it. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, you are welcome to send me an email. I am not in the office for the summer. I will not return to the office until August. So if you do have questions, you do have to send an email. I would want to also remind you to please check, once this class starts, please check your emails daily, because I may send an email. And I will try to send some reminders on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try my level best to send an email per week to help you to get started, to maybe clarify your assignment. But if you have questions about your assignment, please don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, take care. I hope this helped. And I look forward to seeing you or working with you for this class. Take good care.